Alera. We use this in ultrasound as low as reasonably achievable. Okay? That is to make sure that we're not heating up the tissues of the embryo. Now, the first 3 weeks, it's called a conceptus. Okay? Then it's called an embryo. And then it's going to be called a fetus. Okay? During the conceptus period, most women don't even know they're pregnant yet. Okay? Because the embryo or the blastocyst, so let me back up. Okay, conceptus, 1 through 3 weeks. Okay, then 4 through 11 weeks, you have a 4 through 10, you have an embryo, and 11 through 40, you have a fetus. Okay, now, during the conceptus period, you have a zygote. It's a 2-cell membrane. Okay? Once it gets to 16 cells, it's called a morula. Okay? Once it reaches, let's say, 200 cells, it's called a blastocyst. And it's the blastocyst that implants into the endometrium. Okay? The blastocyst has 2 layers of trophoblastic cells and an inner cell mass. And they're not listed in the vocabulary.
Trophoblast and embryoblast?
Yeah. Does it tell you the layers?
Yeah. Outer layer and inner cell mass.
Where do you see it? The blastocyst?
Yes.
333.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the vocabulary.
Oh, no.
The glossary.
Yeah, it's not part of the vocabulary. Okay. The amnion. The amnion is what holds the baby.
Fluid.
The amnion is what holds the baby.
Which is that? That's the liquid, the watery thing.
Yeah, that's what holds the baby and the amniotic fluid. The amnion and the chorion fuse by the 16th week. The blastocyst. We know it's at least 200 cells. It has an outer layer of trophoblastic cells. It has an inner layer of trophoblastic cells. And it has an inner cell mass. The outer layer sends cytotrophoblast. It puts out enzymes like meat tenderizer as the blastocyst is burrowing down into the endometrium. It kind of acts as a meat tenderizer. Okay? The inner layer has a little villi on it, the cytotrophoblast. And that is what anchors the blastocyst to the endometrium. The inner cell mass is going to be the baby. The chorion. The chorion is a pregnant endometrium. It's the membrane around the chorionic cavity. We also call it the gestational sac or the extra embryonic coleum. It's made up of trophoblastic cells and mesoderm. Chorionic villi. That's part of the cytotrophoblast. At the implant, it's okay. At the implantation site, Now the pregnant endometrium, the pregnant endometrium is now called Decidua basalis. Decidua basalis. Conceptual age. Conceptual age is good for the doctors that do IVF because they know the date of conception. Okay? It's not the same as gestational age or LMP age, menstrual age. It's not the same because they know the date. Okay? The conceptus. That is where the egg and the sperm have met, and now we have a zygote. As soon as we have a zygote, we have an IUD. Corpus Luteum. Every month we have a Corpus Luteum. Okay? A Corpus Luteum comes after luteinizing hormone has told the body to release the egg from the ovary. It closes back up. It puts out progesterone, some estrogen, but mostly progesterone. And it is what gets the endometrium ready for implantation. It also helps feed the baby during conceptus period. The corpus luteum will eventually regress. I'm guessing 16 weeks. I'm just guessing. Crown rumpling. That's from the head to the butt of the conceptus or the embryo or the fetus, because we take a crown rumpling up to 13 weeks, 6 days. Now, a seal brought it to my attention that part of the book says it's 13 weeks and part of the book says it's 12 weeks. I learned it at 12 weeks, okay? But it depends on the material that you read, the author, on whether we take that crown rump length to 12 weeks or 13 weeks. Now, if you have that in question, the machine will automatically do a crown rump length. But you know that if the crown rump length is 14 weeks, that is the second trimester. Okay? So at that point in time, you do a BPD, you do a OFD, you do a head circumference, you do an abdominal circumference, and you do a femur length. You get as much as you can on that baby. Okay? You get as much as you can. You're going to have to probably magnify your images because the baby's going to be small. Now, we can start seeing a crown rump length once the embryo gets up to 5 millimeters. Estimated day of delivery. Estimated day of delivery, or sometimes you can see it as EDC, estimated day of confinement. Because there are cultures out there where the mother can't wash her hair, she can't leave the house. You know, there's cultures out there that do that. Okay, that's the date of the baby being born. Okay? Decidualization. Okay. Once the blastocyst starts implanting, we have what we call a decidua reaction. A decidua reaction that we can see on ultrasound. We can see decidua reaction before we see a gestational sac, before we see a yolk sac. We can start seeing that decidua reaction. It's hyperechoic to the rest of the endometrium. Estrogen. Estrogen is primarily produced by the follicles in the ovary. Okay? Once the follicle lets go of the egg, then it turns into a corpus luteum. It still puts out some estrogen, but it's mostly putting out progesterone. Fertilization. Fertilization, you have a male sperm and you have an egg, or an oocyte, or an
Sorry.
ova, or an ovum. It's known by all this, or a gamete. It's known as all the same. Okay? 23 chromosomes, 23 chromosomes. When we start cleavage of the male and the sperm, and then cleavage, those cells are going to separate and join. Now we have 48 chromosomes. Okay? 40, 46. No, you have 48 because you have a male and a female.
No, what the?
23 is, what did I say? 48, oh, 46. Okay, but you're also gonna have a sex hormone telling you if it's a boy or a girl. Okay? Y is a boy, X is a girl. Okay? Now, FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. It comes from the anterior pituitary gland, and it tells the ovaries to build new follicles. Once estrogen gets up to a certain level in the body, then the anterior pituitary gland says to do what? Huh? Luteinizing hormone. It says, okay, I have enough estrogen. Let's get rid of that follicle. Let's give it a spike of LH, luteinizing hormone, and the egg pops out. Okay? FSH. A gamete. We've already gone over that. Gestational age. Gestational age is from the LMP. A pregnancy is 280 days or 40 weeks. It can go up to 42 weeks, and then it's post dates after 42 weeks. The first trimester is from conception to the end of the 13th week. Second trimester, 14 weeks to 27 weeks. Third trimester, 28 weeks to 40 or 42 weeks. Gestational sac, chorionic sac, extra embryonic colon. They're all the same. Gravity, the number of times a woman has been pregnant. HCG. HCG comes from the trophoblastic cells of the blastocyst. Okay? If you draw it by blood, that is more accurate because it can actually give you the levels of the HCG. Urine cannot. So one is qualitative and one is quantitative. Which one's which?
The blood is qualitative. Qualitative.
Qualitative. Mhm. Okay, because it's more specific. Luteinizing hormone, we've already talked about that. When you have luteinizing hormone spike, then the ova separates from the ovary. Okay, that's called ovulation. Day 14, mean sac diameter. Mean sac diameter, length, width, height, Add all those together and divide it by 3. That's the mean sac diameter. Morula. The zygote, those cells divided, those cells divided, those cells divided, those cells divided. When the cells get to 16, we have a morula. The morula travels down the fallopian tube and enters the uterus, and it floats around for a couple of days until it's a blastocyst. It's the blastocyst that implants into the uterus. 200 cells. Nagel's rule. It's kind of like the wheel that we worked with. Okay? You take your L and P,